Hey there, and welcome to Inside and Out with Patricia Stark. I am Patricia Stark, joined by my co-pilot, Lynn Cimetti. How are you today, Lynn?
I'm great, Patricia. How are you? It's good to be back.
It is. We were on vacation and had a couple of re-aired shows, but we are back live on the air today. And, while we were away, I was getting quite a bit of emails. Every time we're on the show, I always tell folks they can call in to our call-in number, which is 845-362-0013, or email us at patriciastark.com, which is our company's email address. And while we were away, I actually started to get quite a few emails from different people requesting a topic, and there seemed to be a theme here. So today we came up with the idea of the topic of sticky situation communication.
Oh, I like that.
To help people navigate through some of those uncomfortable, awkward, maybe confrontational communication situations that you find yourself in daily, maybe at work or even at home, or just when you're going out dealing with people in public settings. And we got a few really nice, juicy emails, I think, of some topics that we're going to cover today based on that. So again, if you're just joining us and you don't know about Inside and Out with Patricia Stark, we are a communications company. I'm a communications coach who works with people that have to go in front of audiences for public speaking, have to be on television, but also for people that want to have communication skills, put their best foot forward as far as job interviews, interpersonal communications within corporations, all kind of things like that really just help folks communicate more confidently and make you feel a little bit more sure-footed when you have to, trust that voice in your head so that you can trust the words coming out of your mouth, I like to say. So, Lynn, why don't you go ahead and read some of the emails, and we'll try to dig a little deep into some answers for these folks.
Okay, here's one from Regina from Havistra. I'm getting really stressed out at work with all the gossip and negative talk that is going on with some of our staff. It really makes me hate going in. What's the best way for me to deal with this every day?
Yeah, that's a tough one because we spend so much of our time at work with people. It's really a large portion of our daily lives, and it's really a downer to have to deal with people who are gossip mongers and who are really just negative folks, right? So the thing with gossip people and negative people is they really want you to join their pity party. A gossiper really loses their steam if you don't partake and if you don't feed that engine for them. Yes. And I think that really the best thing to do is to just walk away from the situation or try to change it quickly. Listen to what they have to say for a minute and then say, yeah, I hear you. Hey, what did you think about so-and-so that's going on at work today? Or what do you think of that next project that we have to work on? Or change topics. It's called bridging. And I coach this when I help people that are going to be interviewed by the media and they have certain points that they want to talk about and maybe somebody's taking them off on a tangent or down a negative road that they don't want to go to. Nobody can take you down a negative road if you don't let them. So you just have to say, you know what, I'm going to be the positive person. I'm going to be the person that never talks bad about anybody, that doesn't complain, that isn't that negative force. I'm going to be the bright light in the room that walks in, and I don't have to stick around. It's kind of like television and radio. If you don't like what you hear, you can change the channel. So don't partake in the conversation. Walk away, and you don't want to sound like you're being nasty either or disrespectful by cutting someone off. So you don't have to do that. You can acknowledge what they said and then change the topic. But really, they are looking for everyone to jump on board. So don't feed into that.
That's true. And it is sometimes difficult when you're in a work situation because you don't want to be the guy who steps away or makes them realize that they were inappropriate. But at the same time, by just being quiet, sometimes you can send that message without really.
Yeah, you don't want to come across as the goody two-shoes, right. That, holier than thou type of attitude, certainly. But, sometimes also people just want to vent. So a lot of times they'll say, oh, isn't that person so nice? Aren't they like the best conversationalists? Because actually you were a good listener and you didn't add to the misery.
That's true.
You can listen, you can acknowledge, and then you can change the topic or look for the bright spot. And I know that this sounds like perfect case scenario, and of course it's not going to always work, and you're just going to get a bunch of crabs sometimes. That's the way that they roll. That's their life and that's their perspective. But you got to do the best to not join into that and walk away pleasantly. It's all in the delivery.
That's true. How about Cassandra from West Nyack? We have been inundated with invitations for the month of August, barbecues, birthday parties, all kinds of things to go to. We need to decline we need to decline some of these so we can have some downtime with our family before the summer's over. How do we do this gracefully?
All right. Well, first of all, Cassandra, it's pretty nice that you're popular and that all these people want you to come to their parties and things. So that's kind of a good problem to have. But I get it. And none of us want to make up excuses and lie and say that we have something else going on when we don't. But it's true. There's only so many weekends and only so many events that you can go to, and you have to have family time. You have to have downtime. You have to have time to recharge your batteries and not be going to every event that you get an invitation to. So the best thing that I would suggest is just say, thank you so much for inviting us. We're really happy that you thought of us, but we already have a commitment that day, and we're so sorry that we can't join you. Now, when I had proposed this to somebody else using this, I already have a commitment on some other topic I was working on one time. They were like, well, I don't want to lie. I feel like that's a lie. And I'm like, but it's not a lie. You have to make commitments. You have to schedule time with your family. You have to put things on your calendar for downtime. You have to put things on your calendar to make sure that you spend that quality time with your family and with your children and whoever that is. So those are commitments. Those are valid, important scheduled events that you have. So Absolutely. When you say the statement and you keep it generic and you say, I already have another commitment that day, I'm so sorry, you're not telling a lie. It's perfectly the truth, and I think that's a very acceptable. And again, you graciously say thank you. We really appreciate the invitation. Unfortunately, we already have another commitment, and who's going to argue with that?
It's true.
And you just you be grateful, and that's the end of that. Our call-in number is 845-362-0013. If you have a situation where you feel that it's uncomfortable, you don't like to deal with it, you don't want to make that phone call, you're dealing with people at work or at home where it's just awkward, or you just dread that type of communication, we want to hear what your stories are today. What else do we got, Lynn?
We have Daryl from Spark Hill. Recently, I was ambushed by an acquaintance at a party who latched on to me the second I arrived and talked endlessly. Before I could not even get away or say hello to the host of the party. What do I do to get away for somebody like this?
Oh, I've met that guy or girl. Yeah, we all know somebody like that. And it's almost like a drive-by shooting. You feel like, oh my gosh, this person is just rapid fire. They monopolize your time and they just want to latch onto you. And really the reason this is happening is probably because this is how nervous energy comes out in some people. They overtalk, they manipulate your attention, and probably they don't know anybody else in the room, or they're not comfortable, and they see you and they're like, oh my God, thank God that person's here, and they just want to latch onto you the whole time. And in addition to this, it might just be an annoying person that all they want to do is talk about themselves, and maybe you've listened in the past and they've known that you're a good target and they're going to approach you with this. So what I would suggest is that, all right, this might be somebody that has this MO and you know it's going to happen. So when you see them approaching, just know and be prepared that you're going to have an exit strategy here, right? If this happens and you're not anticipating it, and this is somebody that you really don't know very well or is just an acquaintance, and they start monopolizing your time like this, especially when you just walked in, like this gentleman, Daryl, said, really, you have to listen for a moment. Again, be gracious, be respectful, and then simply say, gosh, you know what, I want to continue this conversation. I'd love the opportunity to finish it, but I really haven't said hello to the host yet. Let me just go check in. I just want to, let them know I'm here, let them know that I'm saying hi, and then I'll be back and we'll pick up the conversation in a little while. Or if you just arrive, you could say, oh gosh, I'm so glad to talk to you, but man, I've got to find the restroom. Do you know where it is? Who's going to argue with that? Nobody wants a puddle on the floor. So they're going to let you get out of that, right? So you really just have to say to yourself ahead of time, if you know this type of person, if you anticipate they're going to be at that same party, or again, if this catches you off guard, it's always give them a little time, let them talk for a little bit, and when you start to know and you're like, okay, this is going on way too long, just graciously excuse yourself. Either you got to check in with the host, you just got here, you haven't, or you could say that somebody walked by and you could say, oh my goodness, I know this person is just leaving in a little while. They had mentioned to me they're only going to be at this party a short time. Hold that thought. I promise I'll be back. I just got to finish a conversation that, we planned on having here, and I'll be back over to you in a little while. And then, of course, you can determine, do you ever actually make it back? You don't want to be rude, but certainly you can end up doing other things. And then you could meet up with them a little bit later, continue the conversation, and again, have an exit plan. Because they're going to do it again if this is the way they are.
That's a good idea. Exit strategy. This one's kind of tough. I'll be curious to see how you handle this one. This is from Tamika from Spring Valley. She says, my husband and son got into a really nasty fight text messaging the other day. I couldn't believe how out of hand things got. I don't want to see this happen again, but I'm not sure what to say to them or how to help them handle it.
Okay, so this is why texting and email can be so disastrous. As wonderful as these modes of communication can be to save time, to make things easy, and a younger generation is very much into this whole texting thing and stuff. And I text too, of course. I mean, it's easy. It's great, especially if I can't talk on the phone and there's audio or I'm in a meeting or whatever. It's a wonderful thing. But really, do you really want to get into an argument with anybody when you can't see their face and hear what their voice is saying? I mean, everybody listening knows an example of when you mistook what someone said in an email because you couldn't get the tone. Or somebody wrote something short in a text and you took it like, why are they being short with me, when they were really just trying to respond because maybe they were somewhere where they weren't supposed to be texting or whatever it may be. But as soon as things start to take a negative downward spiral and you know that there's a problem, you got to pick up that phone.
Yes.
Or go see them in person. I mean, there's no other answer for that problem.
I agree. And we'll probably come back to this because we have a caller. We'll see what their question is.
Okay, great. Hi, good morning. Welcome to Inside and Out.
Good morning, Patricia. Good morning, Lynn.
Good morning.
I have a question. I'm a registered nurse, and I'll be starting a new job soon.
Yeah.
And I want to know what the best way to handle people, patients especially, will ask personal questions. And it's because they are trying to be distracted or talk about something other than their illness. And I just want to know from you, what do you think is the best way to handle something like that?
So they're asking you personal questions, and you're saying that can be kind of uncomfortable and awkward.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think, first of all, let's talk about why they're doing that. Probably they want to feel really comfortable with you and they want to kind of reach out to you on a human level so that they feel that connection, which obviously makes people feel a lot better when they're worried about their health or they're nervous or they're afraid. So that's really all they're doing, is they're trying to establish a human connection with you. So I think that what the best answer for that to be would be, you don't have to get that personal, but you can maybe answer their question in a more general sense and then turn it back on them or offer something that you are comfortable with. So if they ask you something that is really off limits, you could just simply switch it and say, well, I'm not sure, how I feel about that, but what I can tell you is ... Like, give them something that's going to give them a little insight into who you are as a person and that you are a nice, caring human being that is there to help them through this. But you don't have to give away the farm and give them all detailed information. You can just answer generically and then again offer something like, ask them what they do and find out if there's something that you guys relate, and maybe you could talk about if you each have children or what hobbies they have, or search for common ground where it's something that can be a bonding experience but not ultra personal.
Thank you so much. That's great advice.
Okay, I'm so glad. Good luck with your new job.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks for calling.
All right.
Bye-bye. Again, we are live at 845-362-0013, taking your calls about those sticky situation communications. Uncomfortable conversations, awkward conversations, confrontational communications. It's sometimes you got to make that phone call or you got to face that person that you're just dreading it, but you got to get it done. So we want to hear your questions today. And before the phone caller, we were talking about people arguing, a father and son arguing over text. I mean, just me saying that sounds ludicrous, doesn't it? And it can happen, though, and especially in this day and age with how much we use technology and with how our children use it, etc. But, like I said before the call, as soon as something seems like it's going in a negative direction, you got to nip it in the bud and you got to have human contact. And I don't care if that's on the phone or in person. In person is obviously always better, because then not only do you hear their voice, but you see their facial expressions, you get their vibe, you get their energy. And you better believe that there are cues in all of that. We see things in people's faces that we would never be able to hear in their voice. We see things in their body language and just the way that they're holding their space near us that give us so many clues to how they're really feeling. And we can't get any of that from just the written word in text or in emails. So you just gotta end it before it gets worse.
It is hard. My children often communicate with their texting. But the way I handle it is, if there's something that I truly do not want to discuss through text or feel, I just text back, call me to discuss.
Yes. Yep.
And that's it. That's how I end it. And if they don't call me, then we don't discuss. So if they want an answer from me,
right,
that's the way they're going to get it from me.
Yeah, because the back and forth of determining how we're going to continue this, that can even get sticky. So just a one-liner, call to discuss. No discussion on how we're changing this discussion. That's just it now.
That's right. And they get it. And then I get a call, and it's awesome. And then we take care of it.
Exactly. Very good.
Caller, I think, too. Let's see.
Yeah, so it's just, there's nothing better than human communication in person, if possible.
That's so true.
And we do have another caller. Welcome to Inside and Out.
Hi, I just had a question, which has been plaguing me for a while,
Sure.
and that is, what do you do with friends who constantly, maybe one set of friends, who constantly ask personal questions, and they know that it makes you uncomfortable, and they know that they can tell that it's annoying, and but they still do it.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, what is the, is there an ending point there? Do you just say, enough is enough, or I try to be tactful, but it just doesn't seem to work.
Yeah, I know, and it's really tough when these people are our friends for all intents and purposes, but they want to ask you personal questions about money or intimate things, and you just don't want to go there. And some people just don't get what the limits are. They think that when you're their friend, that they have carte blanche to really dig deep and ask any questions, because they feel that they should have that connection because they're your friend. And
right.
Sometimes you just have to establish those limits and basically be like, what, I'm really not comfortable doing that. Or a nice thing that I've done in the past when somebody asks me a really personal question like that is I'll flip and I'll say, well, tell me about what you think of this first. Or would you feel, how about if I ask you that same question? Are you cool giving me that information? So sometimes if you flip it on them and they have to think about it for a second, all of a sudden it kind of hits home and they realize, oh, you know what? I don't want to have to tell her that information either. So then sometimes it puts a mirror up to their face and they get it. But sometimes that's not even enough. There's obnoxious people out there that are just very prying, and that's the way that they are. And you just have to say, you know what? Let's change the topic, because that's just not something I'm comfortable discussing right now. And if they give you a hard time about it, you could be like, look, if you're my friend, we're going to be cool here. If you're not, then I have my answer.
Right. That's good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much for your call.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're taking your calls at 845-362-0013. Sticky situation communication. What makes you uncomfortable, awkward moments, confrontation. We've got another email in.
We sure do.
Oh, and you can email us as well at patricia@patriciastark.com.
This is kind of a more work-related, which is good. This is Jill from Nanuet. I have to go to a big networking event soon. I'm totally stressing out about going alone and walking into a room full of people by myself. I can't bring any with me, and it's something that could really benefit my work. Please guide me on how I should handle the situation.
Yeah, and I get it. And throughout my career and throughout my history of life, I remember times where this was excruciating for me. You walk into this big room, you're by yourself, you can't bring anybody, you feel like you're walking into the room without wearing any clothes. It can be excruciating if it's not something that you've gotten desensitized to. Once you do this a few times and force yourself to do this, it really does get easier, okay? It's that most of the time, we're at places where we know everybody. We know people at work, we're with family, we're with friends. Not often, unless you're in that line of work or where you force yourself to go into these networking situations, or, just going out by yourself. Like, we don't usually go to a movie alone. We don't usually go do things alone. We usually have company with us. So that's why it feels so like a fish out of water when we do ultimately have to force ourselves to do this.
Especially because it feels like a social setting. So we're not accustomed to being in a social setting completely by ourselves.
Because you walk
strangers.
in, right, and everybody's chatting. You feel like, do I belong? Do you feel like, oh, what is this? So it was interesting. I was on a flight home from Ohio. I was out there doing some corporate training for folks on communications, and I was reading this magazine, and there was a quote from Condoleezza Rice in there that said something along the lines of, I wish that someone had told me that when I felt like I was the only one in the room that didn't belong, that wasn't the case, and that even the men felt that way, only they hit it better. It was a quote along those lines, and it was a brilliant, beautiful thing, because you know what? You're not the only one feeling that way. So 2 options that you have. What I will do is I will scan the room quickly, and I'll look for one person by themselves that's looking as clueless as I am or has a big question mark over their head. This happened to me one time. I went to an author's seminar, because as you know, I've been trying to work on writing this book on all the topics we're talking about, and I came walking in, and again, same thing. It was out in California. I had traveled there. I walk into this huge room. No one had traveled alone, gone out there alone. This was a couple years ago, and all of a sudden I saw this one woman kind of wandering through the crowd by herself. So I made a beeline to her. She saw me. She made a beeline to me. And we started talking. And her name is Allison. She lives in Florida. And funny or not, I've kept in touch with her ever since through email or Facebook or whatever it was. And we laughed about this situation, that it was almost like, we were 2 magnets looking to connect because we saw that we had a similar thing going on here. So that's one thing. Search out a person in the room that looks like they're in a similar position. The other thing that you can do is, it's really tough to approach 2 people that are talking, because 2 people in a conversation is more of an intimate conversation. And you come in like, 3's a crowd kind of thing. It's really awkward. So the best thing to do is look for small groups of 3 or more people. If there's 3 or more people in a group, it's a lot easier for you to break into that and kind of say hello, and kind of then that maybe the 3rd person will be glad that they're not the 3rd wheel anymore, and now there's a 4th person there.
Oh, that's a good
one.
I like
so
that
3
idea.
or more people in a group is much easier to break into, because then you don't feel like 2 people, you've stopped their conversation dead, and now they're turning and looking at you like, who the heck is this person?
Right. And I think we have to also remember that when you're in an event like that, everybody is there for the same reason. They want to meet people. So if you can be the one to swallow and move forward and say hello, you're most likely going to find a very good receive a
yes.
on the other end.
Yeah, because that is why people are there. And even if that's not why they're there, even if it's an event where, you're going for not so much networking reasons, and you still have to work a room, approach just more than 2 people. Go for the threesome, go for the 4 crowd, or a little bit of a group, and it's just much easier to get into that. And then you don't feel like you're interrupting really a main conversation.
Right, that's good.
Do we have another call? No? Okay, go ahead. I think we have another email, though. So, our call-in number, I'll remind you, 845-362-0013. You got an email, Lynn?
Yes, I do. It's from Dave from Pomona. I have a call that I have to make that I'm dreading. I don't want to get into the details, but I can tell you the other person is very confrontational, and I got flustered the last time I had to deal with him. I stumble over my words, and I lose my train of thought because they really throw me off. I have to make this call. What advice can you give me?
Okay, been there, know exactly what you're talking about, Dave. And some people really, it's a tactic to throw you off, where they'll steamroll, they'll be confrontational, they'll be aggressive over the phone, they might be arrogant, know-it-all, whatever this person's situation is that you're dealing with. I get it. I've been in that situation. So what I always would start to do, and which still serves me well to this day if I feel like that, is I will collect my thoughts ahead of time, and I will write it out on a piece of paper. And I'll review it several times. I'll fine-tune it. I'll cut out unnecessary words or unnecessary information. I will go over this and over it and over it until basically I'm creating a script of every word that I need, gotten rid of what I don't need. I'm very clear on my point. I'm very clear on what I want to achieve in this conversation. And I'm very clear on the fact that I've included everything in the order of how I wanted to say it. Then I'll take that and I'll read it out loud several several times so it doesn't sound like I'm reading. Now, there's a little bit of acting involved in this where you don't want to just blurt it out and not stop at periods or commas, because then it'll sound like you don't want to sound like you're reading off a piece of paper, of course. Right. So what you would do is read it, make sure that you throw in a little hesitation there as if you're thinking about your next line, or just kind of pause in a couple of places. But if you rehearse out loud enough, you could even record yourself on your cell phone or on a device to play it back for yourself to hear how you sound.
Can you run it by somebody
You can certainly run it by somebody.
A husband or a wife or your friend who you're comfortable with?
But but if it's something where you don't want anybody to know you're doing this, which I get, some executives and some people don't want people to know they need to do something like this.
I understand.
They want to, feel like they have it together with no problem. So if you record it, then you can listen and you can say, oh, how does that sound? Do I sound like? And by doing that, and also by becoming aware of what you sound like when you're saying it, that in itself is going to give you confidence. So then I would get my phone. I've got the piece of paper right there, and don't look down at it. I'd hold it up in front of you like a voiceover performer with hold up, stand, make sure you're standing because your energy will be better, and hold it up on one sheet of paper right in front of you and go through it. And that way you won't lose your train of thought. You won't fumble for words, and you will say exactly what you intended to say.
That's good.
Okay.
And if you're really lucky, maybe they won't be there and you can leave it on the machine.
No. That's a cop-out. So we've got time for one more email, I believe.
Okay, I have Suzette from Valley Cottage. I really hate when I go shopping and the cashier basically ignores me or barely interacts with me when I'm checking out, or if I go into a store and no one acknowledges me. Any suggestions?
Ooh, I hate that too. It really drives me insane. As a matter of fact, on my way here today, I walked into a Starbucks and there was nobody online, and I walked up to that counter and there were two girls behind the counter busy doing things, but no one acknowledged me. And I get you're busy, but I know that they saw me walk in, right? So instead of worrying and waiting, I just said, good morning, really loud and bright and cheery. And then the one girl turned to me and she said, oh, can I help you? Sometimes you're waking people up out of their stupor. They don't even realize that they're coming across that way. They're so going through the motions. They're tired. They don't want to be there. Who knows what they're dealing with? And then you take it personally. It's silly. Who knows what they've had, what kind of morning they've had,
That's true.
So she kind of woke up, and then she came over, and then the cashier came over and just started ringing me up. Didn't acknowledge me again, and had this look on her face like she was a zombie. And I said, good morning. And all of a sudden she looks up, literally like I shocked her, and she's like, oh, good morning, with a big smile. And I'm thinking, if I didn't say that, I would have walked out of there thinking she was ignoring me or not a nice person. But she was in La La Land, off someplace else, just going through the motions. Now, really, most stores and managers and companies should really be all over their employees about how you act when people walk into your place of business. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And this is something that drives my husband crazy. And he's really good with this kind of stuff. But over the years, I can remember we'd be checking out at a supermarket, and the cashier would barely acknowledge you and would just start. And my husband would be like, hey, good morning. Are you okay? Are you feeling all right? And they're like, all of a sudden they wake up and they're like, yeah, what's the matter? What are you talking about? And really, it's literally that you're waking people up out of this stupor that they're in. And if we don't do that, if we don't make that effort to be the one that says hello first and is up, usually people kind of match your level of energy too. Yes. So you just got to be the initiator.
That kind of brings you back to the beginning of the show, where although it can be difficult, taking the high road, being the one to be, I believe you said, the light in the room, is really for your own personal day of happiness.
Absolutely.
That's the better way to go.
It creates the ripple effect.
Yeah.
It really does.
And ultimately, whether they were nice or not, you feel like you made your effort and you were kind.
Yeah. I'm telling you, 9 out of 10 times when I do this, the person all of a sudden snaps out of whatever it was and they reciprocate. Yes. Very rarely is that not the case. And then you can just look at them. If I get somebody really nasty and I just can't snap them out of it, I'll be like, are you feeling okay? And then they're getting worried that maybe they look like they're ill, and then suddenly they want to talk to you because they're like, oh, why don't I look okay? And that is all the time that we have for Inside and Out today. This has been Patricia Stark along with Lynn Cimetti, and make it a great day. Come on, show 'em what